I realized that there were people, no matter what I accomplished, they would never see me beyond my skin.
I am very grateful that we do have role models, Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama and Aretha Franklin for me.
I want them to know that I walked the same streets, but I never lost sight of what was important, and that was an education.
I look at young people now and they are excited that they have a mayor who looks like them.
They are loved. They are a unique creation of God, that they have a right to stand for social justice and racial equity.
Whether you want to be on the court, on a field, or in a front office, that your education is going to get you there. And if you're an athlete, that's a cherry on top.
It's time for us to get out of the shadows and be visible, because we can accomplish so much more when we're visible.
Welcome, I'm Kelly Jackson. This is Race, Listen, Learn, Live. Starting a meaningful conversation about race in America can often separate people before discussion even begins. Having that conversation can be uncomfortable. But if we don't create a dialogue, then people fool themselves into believing racism isn't that bad, that it doesn't exist. Our focus in this next hour is on Black women. Our hope, have an open mind. Listen to their experiences and help move the conversation forward. So let me introduce our panel. We begin with Reverend Tracy Blackmon. She's Associate General Minister, Justice and Local Church Ministries for the United Church of Christ. She's also a registered nurse. Last year, Kalia Collier was named Vice President of Community Relations for the St. Louis City Soccer Club. She also owns the St. Louis Surge, our city's professional women's basketball team. Mary Elizabeth Grimes is the president of Marion Middle School, the city's only all-girls Catholic middle school. She has more than 20 years of experience leading both nonprofit and for-profit organizations. Ella Jones is the first female and first African-American mayor for the city of Ferguson. She's also a pastor in the African Methodist Episcopal Church. Sports Illustrated called Jackie Joyner-Kersee the greatest female athlete of the 20th century. In 1988, the six-time Olympic medalist established the Jackie Joyner-Kersee Foundation, helping youth in the greater East St. Louis area reach their potential. Dr. Javita Owuweri is a breast surgeon at SSM Health DePaul Hospital and an advocate for women's health. And finally, Denise Times, an accomplished jazz entertainer known locally and nationally. She also serves as the executive director of the Mildred Times Foundation for Pancreatic Cancer. We began by getting to know our panel a little better. I asked them to share their experiences of racism. Reverend Blackmon starts us off, remembering an incident in high school involving a college recruiter.
And this particular day was Harvard's day. I didn't have an interest in Harvard. I had been there and it wasn't for me. But of course, I had not articulated that to the recruiter. And so he presents in front of this class of 32 students, of which I am the only Black student. And he talks about how at Harvard, one could have an entry class of nothing but 4.0s with excellent college application scores. And so that wasn't enough, that you needed to have extracurricular activities. You need to have had accomplishments outside of just your grade. And so after his presentation, and those who were interested in Harvard were clamoring for him, I went to the refreshment table because I didn't want to go to Harvard. He made a beeline for me. He asked me, was I interested in going to Harvard? And I said yes, not because it was true, but because it was polite. To which he responded, well, everything I just said to your class, you don't have to worry about that. If you can manage to get a C out of this school, you can go to Harvard. In that moment, I realized, and it still makes me tear up, I realized that there were people in this world who would never see me. No matter what I accomplished, they would never see me beyond my skin. And he made the determination that my skin disqualified me from competing on the level that others could compete in my class. I made a promise to myself that day to prove him wrong.
You got me. You got me on that one, because I think we have all been in that situation where they look at you and all they see is your color and not your abilities.
Right after the fatal shooting of Michael Brown in Ferguson, I ran for office, the first African-American woman running for councilwoman in Ward 1 in Ferguson. I won the election, but there shortly after, a couple people said some very ugly things about me. They called me a black N. And most of the people in the city say, oh, people say that all the time, but it's not right to call anyone a black N. And it seems like the black people in Ferguson was really displeased with it. Some of the white people, but the majority of them act like it was just an everyday occurrence. So when people realized that I had reported it to the FBI and that they started investigating, then some people started taking it serious. And even today, as being mayor of Ferguson, it's not sad, but when I go around, I can feel it. And it is sad that in 2020, racism is still alive and is well, and people don't hesitate to try to make you feel like you don't belong, but yet you were chosen.
Absolutely. Thank you, Mayor. And this didn't even happen that long ago. This was a year ago.
I was born in Nigeria and did not come to this country until I was 10. And I have to honestly say that I did not know racism growing up.
Okay.
It's okay.
Sorry.
Okay, take your time.
Going through college, then getting into medical school when your advisors advised you to do something else. Well, maybe you could be a nurse, maybe you could be a pharmacist. You can't, well, why are you thinking of being a doctor? But my grades are good enough. But why don't you think about something else? But despite that, I went on to go to medical school, but it didn't end there because I decided to be a surgeon and was told that I should be something else. I should be a pediatrician. I should be an internist. I should be a family practice. Why surgery? Why would you want to be a surgeon? So these were things that were being told to me every step of the way by people that did not look like me. But by the grace of God, I had people that looked like me in my family, and subsequently my husband, whom I met during residency, who let me know that I was good enough, that I could do it. And truly, without that support, I wouldn't be here. And I feel so bad for every woman that looks like me that don't have the type of support that I did growing up to get me to where I am today.
I was in the 3rd grade and a kid spit on me and he called me the N-word. And I remember going home and telling my father that, and he was livid. Like my mother was livid. And the first thing, my dad said, if he puts his hands on you, if he does anything like that, raised in a Black family, you hit them back. And so the next day I went back to school, little boy, same thing, it's incredibly hateful. He pushed me and I punched him in the stomach. It was a moment, I ended up being reprimanded. I remember going into the principal's office and they had to call my parents. And my parents came to the school and they said, your daughter put your hands on this young man And my father said, she did exactly what I told her to do. And what are you going to do to this young man? And I remember these incidents as a kid. And I think the only thing that saved me being in a predominantly white school was that I played sports. I'm reading a book called Black Fatigue at the moment because I couldn't really process what I've been experiencing. And it's like, it's hitting me so heavy because I'm remembering all these things as a kid. And now I'm experiencing them again as an adult.
Wow.
It's traumatic. It can be traumatic.
Growing up in East St. Louis, and really every step of the way throughout my athletic career, that you had people either protected you from certain things that you didn't know was wrong until someone called you out your name. You know, I break the word record. I was never good enough. Every time I did something, oh, I'm on drugs, I'm on this. It's not that my ability is the best. That is something is wrong with me. But I can internalize that because then it would start eating at me. And then all of a sudden I am down and I'm starting to doubt myself. I am one that believe I can turn a doubter into a believer. You know, working with Mary Elizabeth, bright, smart, intelligent. Now they see, oh, it's a beautiful woman. Oh, they don't know anything. You know why we can't have it all? Because we possess it all.
I'll take up where she left off. I mean, you know, certainly Kalia and Jackie have spoken my name, but I love everyone here. You're my sisters, and at some point in my life's journey, we have crossed paths in some way. And race is one of those things that is weaponized, and you know, people don't realize that. I was part of what St. Louis called its effort to integrate. But integration in St. Louis at that time was me getting on a bus in my neighborhood with my entire fourth grade class, including my fourth grade teacher. We got off of the bus at a white school in South City and went to a classroom. The only time I ever saw another white student was on the playground or at gym. At the end of the day, we got back on the bus and then we went home. That was obviously not integration.
I would say that my experiences in racism has been more since I've been in the genre of theater and music. And because, you know, and then along with that, you know, some of the other isms that I've had to experience, because I was too tall, I was too big, I wasn't light enough, my hair wasn't straight enough, or whatever the case may be. So it's just an ongoing thing. I mean, you could pick up the phone and call a customer service line, and once they look at your information or detect in your voice that you're Black, you're treated a totally different way. So it's an ongoing thing that you become numb to it.
We've documented their stories.
I started feeling ill at home. The coughing was the worst side effect that I had.
I could not talk. That's how I was talking.
Black women detailing their battle with COVID-19.
The worst symptom for me was the chest pressure and a little bit of kind of difficulty breathing. That part was definitely the most scariest because like once I had it, I just really didn't know what to expect.
Nearly a year into the pandemic, studies show Black women were the hardest hit, not just by the virus, but by the economic domino effect that followed.
To be honest, I think that we knew health disparities were always there, but I don't think we ever observed it in this dramatic fashion as we have in COVID times.
Dr. Farron Mannion is the chairman of the Department of Medicine at Mercy Hospital, St. Louis. He says he noticed immediately the virus was not affecting the population in an equal way.
Some of it, again, has to do with their societal role, because often Black women may be the head of the household and they have obligations to, raising kids and taking care of their parents.
In addition to that, statistics from the World Health Organization show women are 1.8 times more likely to have lost their jobs due to coronavirus. African Americans are twice as likely to have lost their jobs compared to white Americans, and 70% of healthcare workers are women.
I'm not surprised by that statistic, but you know, we obviously have to do better. And it's something that I feel like a lot of people don't necessarily know about or take into consideration.
Keena Muhammad is an account manager in St. Louis. She says until society makes some changes, it's up to women of color to
take care of yourself. You know, when I got COVID, I was focused on getting better. Nothing else mattered to me, because at the end of the day, if you're not going to take care of yourself, then how are you going to be expected to take care of other people and keep other people safe?
Reporting in St. Louis, Jasmine Payute, 5 on your side.
So I want to start with Dr. Orwary. As a doctor, what are your feelings on how this has really affected the Black community?
Well, Kelly, it's really been devastating. And I think a lot of us did not really know the true impact in the beginning. So it's not probably till the second half of 2020 that we started to really see it. And I think the problem is that a lot of us in the Black community did not take this seriously also. And because of that, we did not take the appropriate precautions that we needed to take. And a lot of the reason we've been impacted the most is because of a lot of the predisposing conditions that are higher in the African American community, the hypertension, diabetes, heart disease, etc. Because all of those things are the things that make COVID disease even worse. And we have that, plus then not adhering to the restrictions. The way I've seen it impact my patients for what I do is that because a lot of my patients have not been able to go in for mammography like they normally would, we've got a huge backlog of women that haven't gone in for their screening mammograms. So now in early 2021, we're having women start to go back for screening. And we're seeing lots of breast cancers that we should have diagnosed last year that we're now seeing, and it's just far more advanced than it should have been last year. So it's still early data that we're seeing on this, but the numbers are going to get much worse. And unfortunately, it's the African American community that is most impacted by this.
I want to delve a little deeper into the mental well-being of how everyone is doing. How are you all handling it mentally? And JJK, I know that your community center, you have played a role in testing and food distribution. So I guess it's a two-part kind of question.
So mentally, I'm doing well. To have the JJK Center and to be a resource to the community, we partner up with the state so they could provide drive-through testing to encourage the community at large to get tested. But then sometimes, you know, we don't take advantage of the things that's available to us. You should take your safety, you know, seriously. So wearing that mask, you need to wear that mask. You know, don't get complacent, don't get comfortable, because this is a virus out here. We're learning as we go, you know, and so providing food, doing just some of the things that we would normally do, but then going outside of what we would normally do when we first shut down was delivering hot meals to our families, you know, and just trying to make sure that having the JJK Center, how can we, you know, be an asset, you know, to the community, but safety is first and foremost.
I'd like to add something else into this conversation, Kelly, because what COVID has provided for us is a glimpse of the intersection. COVID is at the intersection of racism, sexism, and economic inequality. though the images of essential workers that we receive are the physicians and the nurses, and thank God for them. But there are other essential workers in our neighborhoods, daycare workers, bus drivers, school teachers, nursery teachers. All of these people typically are Black or Hispanic in St. Louis, predominantly Black. Those people were not triaged in the first level of PPE. People were saying that Black people in neighborhoods should wear masks. At the time I was still pastoring a church in those neighborhoods, there were no masks. We actually had to do a campaign as Black churches and raise money. The head of Twitter gave us $1 million to buy PPE. We hired Black women pharmacists to develop sanitizer because we couldn't get it, to begin putting it in the neighborhoods so that those essential workers could actually have them. If you are working for minimum wage, it is impossible for you to house a family on minimum wage. So many Black women work multiple jobs to keep a roof over the head of their children, right? And they don't have the luxury of isolating and staying home, because if they don't go to those jobs, then their family has nowhere to live.
The only positive that I've seen that's come out of COVID is that it's exposed a lot of these inequalities to people that ordinarily would not be thinking about the inequalities, because this was the only time in a long time in history when most people were home, most people were on their computers, on their phones, on their devices. People were engaged. So people are aware of what's going on. They're aware that African Americans are dying at disproportionate rates. They're aware of what happened to George Floyd. They're aware of all of the police brutality. So a lot of these inequalities are now coming forward.
COVID has done so many things. It keeps grandparents from seeing their grandchildren. It keeps us from seeing our parents. It has interrupted so many wonderful things that we do, and music is one of them. And I don't even want to imagine what the world would be like without music. I'm grateful for the venues that are trying to stay open so that artists can work. But we are suffering on every level. And I just want people to know that we are. And so if you have a favorite artist, I encourage people to reach out to that artist. Don't ask them how they are. Just reach out to them and do what you can.
My name is Rihanna Wise. I am the executive director for Almost Home. I am also a wife and a mother of 6 children and 2 beautiful dogs. Raising Black children in 2021 looks a lot different than I originally expected at this point in my life. I raised 2 Black boys, and they are 20 and 18 years old. And to this day, even though they don't live in my home, they still need to check in. I still need to make sure I know where they are. I teach them how to, if they get pulled over, what that looks like. Having children during a time of unrest and George Floyd and everything that was going on, we had to talk to our children about what was happening in America and how it was important that, they followed the rules. My husband and I have been very intentional about teaching our children about diversity. So encouraging them to make sure that, we have friends with everyone. We live around neighbors that, don't always look exactly like us. We are big on diversity. However, we always have to remind them, unfortunately, who they are, and the color of their skin does make a difference. The one thing I would want to say is I want them to be advocates. I want them to be intentional about loving other people. Let's see about our neighbors. Let's check in and make sure that, our seniors are doing good during this time. I want them to think about people and make sure that they're always saying, how do we help our community so that the community is well?
Let's talk about raising and mentoring Black children. I know some of you have children. I'm sure most of you have had the talk, you know, those unwritten rules that you tell your kids to follow to ensure that they stay safe and get home alive. What do you say to the young people in your lives about police interaction, or those who may not like them because of the color of their skin?
I just had a recent conversation with my son. My son is 20, and he just had to drive back this week to Pittsburgh to school. His dad and I were really nervous because he's a young Black man driving by himself in a brand new car. And yeah, we sat him down and we talked to him. Make sure you have all of your paperwork in order because they may think you stole the vehicle. Make sure if you get stopped, you keep your hands where they can see it. You don't reach for anything. And it's unfortunate that this is a conversation that we have to have with our young Black kids. But it is, because it's scary out there. It honestly is scary. Every time that I know that they are on a drive somewhere, I do not rest until I know that they are back where they're supposed to be.
I'm nervous all the time when my son goes out the door. And then the George Floyd movement did not make it any better for us who are raising our Black sons. And, you know, where you're just pulled over because of the color of your skin. You know, the only thing that, you know, we can do is keep praying and just keep coaching our young men on how to handle themselves.
Mayor Jones.
Everyone is talking about community policing. However, community policing is more than just interacting with the young people, but setting policies that when a young person is stopped by a police officer, it's a certain way the police officer should address that young person. Even though we as Black mothers have given our children a talk, also we are working on the police officers on how they are to address the African-American population when they stop.
If you have or had a daughter, what advice would you give her about maneuvering through our world? Mary Elizabeth.
I have a granddaughter, and during the George Floyd protests, one of the things that concerned her was, is this what I have to look forward to as I grow up in life? That was very painful for me to hear, because historically, and I try to give her a historical perspective on things. You know, she's not seeing where throughout history that she and people who look like her are necessarily valued for what it is they accomplish. And what I say to her, and I say to Marion girls, this is your time, your moment. At the moment of your birth, you were purposed with making an impact in this world. You're uniquely equipped to be able to do that. It is not about ourselves. It is about how we are able to do for others. And that's why I appreciate this panel of women, because I see that across our community spectrum, that's what they're doing.
I am very grateful that we do have role models, you know, some that were mentioned, you know, Kamala Harris and Michelle Obama and Cicely Tyson and Oprah Winfrey. I'm so glad that these women, that, you know, our daughters have had a chance to experience these women, but it does not minimize the women that we experienced. By no means, you know, Shirley Chisholm and Maya Angelou and Aretha Franklin for me, you know, so it doesn't minimize the women that came before us, but my goodness, you know, they really have an opportunity to really soar and to really shoot for the stars. And one of the things I tell them is You know, don't compare yourself to anybody else in terms of where you are in your life. Your journey is your journey, and it is meant for you, and you're exactly where you're supposed to be.
I want to tap into what Mary Elizabeth shared about having a faith background. Dig deep into it, because that word anava, which is translated humility, does not mean to shrink or to be submissive or to be passive. It actually literally means to occupy the correct amount of space given you by God. Occupy all of it. Just don't try to take somebody else's space. And this is important to Black women, because I, as a pastor and as a mother of a woman child, a womanish child, what I want her to know is that all the space God has given her is hers to occupy. And she doesn't have to diminish herself or shrink or act like she knows less or act like she's weaker. Be who God has called you to be. Walk in it. And the humility comes by recognizing that that same God has gifted other people too.
If it means standing on the House floor, being very unapologetic and very loud about our struggles, that's what I'm going to do.
In our next half hour, Black women shattering the glass ceiling in Washington.
My name is Brittany Hogan. I am the Director of Educational Equity and Diversity for the Rockwood School District. My job entails a lot of fun things. I'm the Director of the VIC program, the Voluntary Interdistrict Choice Corporation for Rockwood. We have close to 1,400 students who are bused in from St. Louis City every day into our 30 buildings, and I oversee that program. I also support the social workers and the social emotional behavioral therapists. I help direct the equity plan for the district, and I help with professional development and social justice initiatives within our buildings for our staff and students. We're here to create these global citizens, right? And so global citizens are able to interact with all people, and they're able to learn about all things, and they are active citizens in the world. And so we have to create an environment that fosters that, and that ensures that people are with people who look differently than them, with people who look like them. We want our schools to feel like a space that is inclusive, that is welcoming to all, and we want our curriculum to say the same thing. I always tell the kids, distance doesn't separate our love, and so we want to make sure that they know that they're loved and cared for all the time. It definitely takes a village. Representation matters. Seeing someone who looks like you within your educational space matters. And I also try to show it for all kids because I want them to know that people like me exist, that there are Black women who are doing phenomenal things for all kids, who are showing up, making a commitment to education and to the future of our children. We get frustrated on how slow things can move sometimes, and we feel like things can't move fast enough, but I've seen it. I've seen the changes that have been made. I see them continuing to be made, and so my hope is that we will continue to make these changes, is that we will continue to make education a space that loves and nurtures Black kids, that shows up for them, that lets them know they are worthy. I want to celebrate my kids every day, and I want them to know that they're worthy of being celebrated.
I had one Black teacher from K through 12, Mr. Powers. And in all of my education, my formative years, just one Black teacher. And to this day, his guidance has been a lasting impact. Even though he was my 5th and 6th grade teacher, but I still honor and remember him and thank him for representing. And representation matters to our children. So let's talk about how important representation is when it comes to educating our children.
It's interesting. I've never had a Black teacher, not through K through 12, not through undergrad. And I am incredibly grateful for my mother, who is a very strong Black woman. But I've sought out other strong Black women to be mentors, to be role models in my life, because it gives variations of success. And that is why I'm so adamant about going out into the community. That is why I'm so adamant of making sure that You know, you see what's possible and you understand that you can be anything with seeing it in front of you and knowing the value of education and seeing women who look like you is so gravely important. And I know for myself to be able to see the women who are on this panel, it's always impactful for me because I didn't have it growing up. And so you see all of these beautiful Black women who are just so smart, so talented, and you say, that could be me. You know, you choose one path or the other. And then for kids, and for particularly young Black girls, young Black boys get a lot of opportunities, particularly in sports. Young Black girls get overlooked a tremendous amount. And that has been my purpose, to make sure you see what all of the variations of success, whether you want to be on the court, on a field, or in a front office, that your education is going to get you there. And if you're an athlete, that's a cherry on top.
I actually have a story, just one of those things that just impacted me tremendously. I was seeing a patient a few years ago in the office. She was a white woman, and she came in for her breast cancer treatment, and she was just very much impressed by me. And I did not realize what her home situation was. But the next time she came in with her 2 children who were Black children. So she's a white woman that adopted Black kids. And she brought them in because she wanted them to meet me, because they had not seen anyone that looked like them that was a physician. And she continued to bring them, year after year. And these kids have now gone on to college, and I believe one of them is interested in going into medicine. And that's something that may not have happened if they did not meet someone that looked like them. So for her to do that for her kids was just so amazing to me. It's just one story from my patients that I always remember that just meant so much to me.
JJK, you have been a true role model for so many young people. You know, they want to be like you. They want to be one of the greatest athletes in the world ever too. What do you tell the young people in the community center about, being their best and getting that education?
We're blessed, to have the JJK Center and working with young girls and young boys and just students, and for us, we created Jackie Jordan Kersey Winning in Life. It's a curriculum. It's based off of my autobiography called A Kind of Grace, and through it's 14 different principles. But what's important is for them to read my story, but I'm not trying to create another Jackie Jordan Kersey. I want them to know that I walked the same streets too, and I set goals, and I had hardship, but I never lost sight of what was important to my parents was important to me, and that was an education. Because when I was coming up, the opportunities for girls in sports weren't there. No one really appreciated your talents. They didn't care. My mom didn't even understand what I was doing. She wanted me to get a job in education. But being able to work with, especially the young girls, I have this program called Jackie Jewels, letting them know that they all are a jewel. Somebody told me I was a diamond in the rough. I didn't know what they meant, So empowering them, the confidence, letting them know that, they have what it takes, and you're surrounded with people that can help you get there. But the education is first and foremost. And I just love what the Reverend was saying about, because people sometimes confuse if I'm in a room with them that I'm shy, but I'm not, because I'm allowing other people to shine. And I just love what she was saying. And that's what, when I talk to these young girls, you don't have to be the loudest in the room for people to see you or hear you, but eventually you will shine.
At Marion Middle School, we educate girls starting in 5th grade, and we continue to mentor them all the way through college and help them get their first job. And from the moment they enter into Marion Middle School, they are affirmed, they are told that they are valued, they are loved, they are a unique creation of God, that they have a right to stand for social justice and racial equity. Those are the very things that I tell my children that, you know, I have had by birth. And that is the foundation on which we send our girls and my children out into the world.
Hi, I'm Cori Bush, representing Missouri's 1st District, which is St. Louis, in the United States Congress. People would say, you know, coming in, you know, as a freshman and, you know, coming in the way that you're coming in, people won't receive you well. But that wasn't the case at all. I kept my voice the same. I stayed true to who I am the entire time that I ran for office. And so people knew what to expect when I walked in those doors, and people received me that way. You know, seen as, you know, as that trope, you know, Black women, when we speak out, when we use our voices a certain way, that we're angry Black women. But for that to be a bad thing is the problem. The bad thing is that it still exists. The bad thing is that we're still fighting. The bad thing is that we still have to watch our children go to schools that are underfunded, mothers and fathers dying at the hands of police unjustly. We still have to watch people sleeping on the streets, unsafe housing, right here in St. Louis. And so, yes, we're angry. We're angry because the people who could have made the change haven't. As I move further in my political career and in activism, in humanitarianism, I'm looking to our youth to start to do the same. Many have, and many are looking like, okay, you know, I feel like there's something that I could be doing, but I just don't know what. Educate yourself in whatever it is that you're passionate about. Like, really dig in. I say to young Black women who look up to me, who feel like they want to be like me, like following my footsteps. Push forward, know your mission, understand what it is that you have to give to this world, to your family, to your community, and beyond, and go after that.
Mayor Jones, last June, you became the first woman and first African-American elected the city of Ferguson. What did that mean, being elected? What did that mean for you?
It meant the people had a voice, and they exercised their voice, and they have come to a point they want to be heard. They are not satisfied with standing in the background anymore. Mm-hmm. And they selected someone who was opening their mouth and showing people that we are just as good as the next person. I look at young people now and they are excited that they have a mayor who looks like them, but not only that, listen to them. And that makes a big difference. The night that I was elected, a young girl walked up to me and she said, Mayor Jones, my mom told me your degree is in chemistry. I said, yes, it is. She said, I want to be a chemist. I said, you can do it too. Just because you see someone doing it, you can do it too. It gave people hope.
Well said. Political representation, I believe, is an important part or an important catalyst to racial equity, especially in 2021. So where do you think we need to go from here? I'm going to ask you, Mary Elizabeth.
Well, first of all, I think you cannot be what you cannot see. And having Mayor Jones in Ferguson, having Kamala Harris breaking the glass ceiling of the second highest office in the country is meaningful for young people just to be able to say and see what is possible.
I want to shout out all the Black women, especially in Ferguson, who have shifted the narrative of this entire nation and don't get credit for it. It's not just our politicians, it is the activists and the organizers who have pushed and worked. Black women are the most consistent voting bloc in this nation, and we have been for decades. We vote loyally. And because of that, even in St. Louis, look how the landscape has changed.
I think that with the past administration and with all of the chaos, the turmoil, the adversities that happened with that administration, and with people seeing the power of voting that got results, I think that our young people, as well as our old, are a little bit more hopeful. And I'm very excited about our young people because they can look back and go, yeah, we made a change. We did it. And so I hope that they will continue to, be inspired to continue to exercise their vote, especially, when we know how so many people died, just to, get the right to vote.
So I don't traditionally wear chef coats in the kitchen. I tend to dress up when I'm cooking because it makes me feel good.
And the food Tasha Smith whips up, that's not traditional either. You see, there are burgers.
You can kind of, add a little pizzazz to it.
And then there's this.
Serving fresh made jalapeno bacon jam was something that I wanted to throw in the mix. And so, here we are.
Nestled between storefronts on South St. Louis's vibrant Cherokee Street is Burger 809, a product of Smith's nearly 6 years of work, love, and persistence.
Not having a large financial backing, just did things a little slower than normal, but it was a process and I just navigated the systems and figured it out on my own.
Without a mentor who looked like her, or even a business model that embodied what she wanted to create.
So there were definitely challenges, but just navigating those and not recognizing them as challenges going through the process. But I did want to have one goal in mind, and that was to elevate the food service industry in St. Louis.
Specifically in South City.
Every community deserves fresh food, fresh service.
And she works to serve up both while stepping over barriers.
They're, not looking necessarily for a woman in the kitchen, necessarily a Black woman that provides, the food that we provide.
She's doing her part to change that.
I think there's definitely room for more education, more resources, more spotlight on Black businesses and Black-owned restaurants. I think that the pandemic put a spotlight and it kind of magnified the issue that we've been facing pre-COVID.
Like access to financing, appreciation for their stories, and a seat at the table. She says now is the time. So even in the rough waters of a global pandemic,
we're just doing the best we can to keep our doors open because we know that, there's sunshine after this horrible storm.
With love, with passion for her community, and of course, a pinch of pizzazz. Morgan Young, 5 on Your Side.
Here's a quote from Malcolm X. The most disrespected person in America is the Black woman. The most unprotected person in America is the Black woman. The most neglected person in America is the Black woman. He said that in 1962. It's more than a half century later, we're still the invisible woman. When it comes to the pay gap compared to white female counterparts, feeling sidelined during the feminist movement, violence against Black women. So I want to know your thoughts on the invisibility of Black women. Jackie Joyner.
It's going to always be a fight, in my opinion, no matter what, because we can't flatline. It's like we get this enthusiasm, we get the adrenaline going, but we can't flatline. We have to be seen. Not only heard, but seen. And we have the power to do that. And we've shown it with our vote going to vote, doing the things we need to do. But we have to continue to galvanize, mobilize, educate, reach back, and make sure that the generation that's coming after us, that they continue this.
Kalia?
What Jackie said, we're no longer, we're here. We're here. We're here to be seen. We're not going anywhere. Feel our presence, feel our strength, feel our spirit, our energy, and the acknowledging where we are today. We've been just getting started. And I think that's what I take, to feeling as empowered as I do right now and keeping that momentum. We can't slow down. And Mayor Jones is absolutely right. We have to continue to reach back, and we have to make sure that when we talk about being inclusive, that we're inclusive of all of us that look like us, to ensure that we're all going the same direction. On a team, you're only as strong as your weakest link. So therefore, we have no room. We got to make sure everyone is side by side and we're in this movement together.
Dr. Oruwari?
I mean, just look at what we as Black women have accomplished while we've been invisible. But it's time for us to get out of the shadows and be visible, because we can accomplish so much more when we're visible. And when I think about where we're going, I know we are going forward for sure, but I like to think we're going up beyond the glass ceiling. I like to think that there is something beyond the glass ceiling, and we can definitely go for it.
I would like to change the word invisible to disregarded. If you look back on history, Black women have been visible and have done much for us to be here today. The question becomes, have we been regarded and celebrated for the contributions that we've made? And so I, want to say that this collective talent that we are talking about, collective strength, collective wisdom, is what will carry us forward. This is what we have been divinely gifted with. And so to be able to use that for the good of humanity, for those that are coming behind us, that is what is critically important. That's my personal mission, to help other women, and certainly to make a pathway for young girls.
Reverend Blackmon?
I like what Mary Elizabeth just did with that. I was thinking about how the support of most structures is not seen. And that's how I think about Black women's presence in our society, not just for Black people, but for all people. I would say to that, and it's just a question in my mind. My experience as a Black woman, and most of the Black women I know, could get more credit, but credit is not what we're after. We're after change. Mm-hmm. We're after making life better for our children. Just most of the Black women I know, the credit is just a coincidence. It's that we want to move the entire village forward. And I count it an honor to stand on some shoulders and stand shoulder to shoulder with women who understand not just the I, but the we. Black women move for the whole. We always have, and we always will.
What comes to mind is a scripture. Let your light so shine that men may see your good works and glorify your Father which is in heaven.
It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come.
Before we go, I want to thank our panel for sharing their personal stories in an effort to educate others about racism and racial inequality. It is a problem that has been centuries in the making that won't be solved overnight. But we hope this program was a step in the right direction. Let's keep the conversation going. We leave you with more from singer Denise Times. I'm Kelly Jackson. Thank you for watching Race, Listen, Learn, Live.
And I go downtown, but everybody keeps telling me don't hang around. It's been a long, long time coming, but I know change gonna come. Oh, yes, it will.